And this is your first time in Poland when Quiet Hero just became a New York Times best-selling list and USA Today, Washington Post bestseller. So, what do you think is the significance of that?
You know, I was so proud. And the best call of my life was to call my father, of course. Here my father was an upriser and was in the Gazdava unit in AK. And my father, when I called my dad and told my father that the book about his life and his comrades hit the bestseller list, he was so happy. And his first answer was, I said, "Hooray, Dad, this is so great." And he said, "This is great for Poland." Because my father and I both knew what it meant for the Polish people. And to me, that was much more important than any success I had or my father had. I knew that this was an important moment that said that American people want to hear this story and that the world acknowledges the heroism of the uprisers and of the Polish people today. And to me, an affirmation that this is a story that needs to be told. And I hope that it also inspires. There are a lot of other great stories out there that have not gotten the exposure in America and elsewhere outside of Poland. And so I hope people who see this interview say to themselves, well, maybe my story can be told now. And I hope it opens the doors for other people who have valuable and great stories to go now to the American market and pitch it to the American market, because the heroism that so many people here in Poland know the story of the uprisers. You know, it's a story that has been told many times in different forms. Yet, in America, very few people knew about the uprising. And here I am, a well-known journalist and many friends in the media, and yet I would say, you know, very slim percentage of the people I spoke to and I did interviews with and did hundreds of interviews about the book. I felt very few of them really knew about the story of the uprising. And that, on one hand, was very sad to me that, you know, it's taken so many decades to get this story out. And even though it's a story known here, we have to remember that it's not that well known in America and that there are probably many other corners of the world. Because what happened, and in the case of my father and many of the other uprisers, my father was so humble and I also think so traumatized by what he went through. It was such a very painful period because he lost so many of his comrades. 80% of his men did not survive. And it was very emotional for my father, and he didn't talk about it. And also my father and so many of the other uprisers are so humble and don't share those stories. And I think because of that, there was this silence, this wall of silence that didn't just happen here in Poland, but times 10,000 in other corners of the world. So, you know, the silence that you endured here, you know, it was deafening in other parts of the world. And I think that we have to remember that there is such an incredible, rich heritage here and such an important story and history here that is truly unique and truly heroic. And when people hear the story, they love the story. And when I've been sharing it, I love often when I'm in America and I talk to groups, and sometimes, often there are Poles in the audience, there are often military veterans in the audience, but a lot of times there's none. It's just American citizens, and I love that. You know, I spoke to a crowd of thousands and thousands of Americans and do it quite often. And I love it when it's someone who's not Polish, you know, because then they're learning about it. And when they come over to me afterwards and say, you know, I didn't know about this story. I had never heard about the uprising. I heard about maybe the ghetto uprising, and I didn't hear about the Warsaw uprising, or I didn't really know much about either. I mean, we have to remember now the many generations. And so I think it is a powerful reminder that it's an important story, and it's a great story, that we in Poland have some incredible, amazing stories of sheer courage. You know, when my father tells me the stories of escaping through the sewers and what it was like for him personally, and then escaping from the camp, and just the heroism of the guys in the uprising and the women in the uprising too. It's an incredible story, unlike a lot of the war stories that are out there. A lot of people hear different war stories, but this story is truly heroic and truly a symbol of bravery against all odds. And when people hear it, they love it. So I think it's an important message that we have to continue getting that message out. We have to not assume that everyone's heard it, because you've heard it here in Poland. And America is still very new, and in many places it's still very new. And it is still a great story that deserves to be told. And when I've told the story, I've had people come over to me afterwards and say, gosh, those Polish citizens were so gutsy. They were great. They were amazing. I can't believe they did that, or that your father survived, or that his comrades survived. And so we can't forget that there's such an incredible, heroic and important story in our history. And I hope that the young Polish citizens, most importantly, never forget it, because it's something very much to be proud of. I'm so proud of my father, but I'm so proud of Poland. And the fact that Poland has survived, I tell everyone, think about it, it's still on the map. And not only is it on the map, here I am now, it's beaming on the map. It's a huge flash bulb flashing everywhere because of the economy and its people. And it's no coincidence, I think, that Poland has always risen. You know, here we look back, and now in 20 years, leaving communism, and in 20 years having one of the best economies in Europe, I'm not surprised, because the same guts of the people and creativity of the people now, I think, is very symbolic of the same guts and creativity that it took in the uprising to go against the Germans and then the communists on the other hand. I mean, think about the guts. It's the same sort of guts and heart and spirit that I think the Polish people have today, and I think that's why they're so successful.